Before the video begins, I would like to explain why am I remaking my first 4 SpongeBob video game reviews that I made, if you haven't seen the post-credits teaser in my Best of 2023 video. Number 1. Obviously, I have become a much better editor, and I'm getting better at getting gameplay footage. Number 2, my script writing has obviously gotten better over time, and so is my script reading. Or at least I'd like to think so, but honestly, it's up to personal opinion for most people. And finally, number 3, my old editing software that I used was complete and utter useless garbage. Where you can notice in some of my older videos, after a section of maybe audio, which was maybe me talking, or maybe the gameplay, it would obviously glitch. And even in the Creature from the Krusty Krab video that I did, it cut out that whole portion of me talking about the Fairly OddParents games for 10 or 15 seconds. So it just makes sense to me to come back with, better knowledge, to remaster these, fix them up, add some new stuff that I figured out, and, just make them a lot better. With that disclaimer out of the way though, I really do hope that you enjoy these remasters nonetheless. I'm sure at some point when you were a kid, your parents probably weren't sure what video games you would have liked. So, obviously, considering your age, they would have picked out a game based on a cartoon show you liked. Especially if you watched the 2 main cartoon channels like Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. Licensed games. These were bigger on the 2000s and early 2010s, with different cartoons or movies coming around that time, probably getting licensed game, like Madagascar, Flushed Away, Kids Next Door, you name it. One cartoon, though, was probably the biggest around this time, when it came to licensed video games, and that show was, obviously, SpongeBob SquarePants. Nickelodeon and THQ have made tons of SpongeBob licensed games, either original or based off a special episode/movie. After Activision got the publishing rights from THQ, they completely soiled SpongeBob games so bad, we never got a new original SpongeBob game from Hero Pants that was released in 2015 for the Sponge in the Water movie, until Cosmic Shake all the way in 2023. Back on topic, THQ published 4 SpongeBob console games during the GameCube PS2 era that people consider to be the best out of all of the games that the Sponge has ever been in. I have played all 4 of these as a kid, so I will be replaying them now as an adult to see if I still think they stood the test of time or I am completely blinded by nostalgia. And what better way to start this is with the SpongeBob video game people talk about to this day and still consider to be probably one of the best, if not only good, licensed video games out there. SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom was released in 2003 and was released on the original Xbox, GameCube, and PS2. Of course, it also got a GBA and a PC edition, which both are completely different games. Now, this game was my first ever video game as a kid. Now, this to my friends would probably explain why I am such a big fan of SpongeBob or animation media in general. I mean, again, cartoons are just good in their own right, but still. Though I was never able to complete the first world or any section in it, considering how stupid I was as a kid, and all I did was just watch people play the game on YouTube or my sister playing it. Of course, this wasn't the first ever SpongeBob console game. That title went to a certain game that is very infamous for being bad and not accurate to the show, but we won't talk about that game for probably a super long time. Battle for Bikini Bottom was a 3D collectathon platformer developed by Heavy Iron Studios after the release of Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, and I think it uses the same engine considering you can see the intro for that game if you data mine in the files. The game begins with Plankton getting a genius idea of using a robot army to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula as he usually wants to do. As he welcomes his brand new army he created, he realizes in a Doofenshmirtz type move, Plankton for some reason had a do not obey switch, which was on obviously do not obey. Plankton is tossed out by the robots as Spongebob nearby wishes for real robots to play with using Patrick's magic wishing shell. The next day, Bikini Bottom is in complete and utter chaos, and SpongeBob has to figure out how to fix this mess that he thinks he created. To me, this game sounds like a pretty good plot to an actual episode of SpongeBob, and I'm pretty sure many others have agreed to that, but You get to play as SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy. Each plays differently and can do only specific character stuff. Like Patrick is the only one who can pick up fruit and tikis, while Sandy can lasso and glide. SpongeBob, on the other hand, can attack straight up and down, and later gets 2 bubble abilities that expands his moves further, like a bubble bowling ball and a bubble guided missile. Considering the game is a platformer collectathon, there are obviously tons of stuff to collect. From shiny objects, which are the currency in the game, socks that belong to Patrick, world-specific objective items, and of course the main one, golden spatulas. These are your basic Mario 64 power stars that allow you to open up new areas to explore for more spatulas, shiny objects, socks, you get it. There are a total of 100 in the game to collect, and you only need 75 of them to beat the game, which is a good ratio of letting people get to 75 in any way they want. Of course, other than getting them through the different levels and their different mission objectives, you can get more from Patrick and Mr. Krabs. For every 10 socks you collect, Patrick gives you 1 spatula, and Mr. Krabs gives you a spatula when you give him enough shiny objects, with each spatula costing more every time. Each section of Bikini Bottom has 3 areas, and 1 mini and 1 regular boss battle. There's also 1 pair of golden underwear in each section of the hub world to increase your hit points. As for levels, they all fit well into the show. From the green hills of Jellyfish Fields, to the deep advanced darkness of Rock Bottom, and to the eerie ambience of the Kelp Forest. They're all good levels that feel exactly right out of the show. When it comes to the enemies in the game, they're all pretty fun looking and all are unique. My personal favorite is being Hammer, or Slick, since Hammer is literally just a robot using a ham as a hammer, and Slick's design was always a favorite of mine growing up. Of course, the boss fights are pretty fun and good. Each area has a gate which takes you to said boss fight to unlock the next area of the levels, but also a power-up. The first one being Robo Sandy, who you fight in the Poseidome, Robo Patrick, who you fight in the Industrial Park, and with the final boss in the Chum Bucket, you fight SpongeBob Steel Pants with the help of a robotic Plankton. The boss fights are pretty fun to replay, especially the last one, with having a gauntlet at the end of it acting as a trial to see if you can master the abilities used throughout the game. After defeating SpongeBob by destroying its brain, the robot falls to the ground as they celebrate. The Duplicatotron starts to create more robotic Planktons which all argue with each other. Sandy does mention there are still robots out there causing chaos, and SpongeBob says they will not rest until the robot mess is dealt with as the game closes. There is a 100% ending cutscene, but it's just the characters singing and dancing to the intro for the game, which isn't the exact intro of the show, just sang in a different person's voice. It's not anything really crazy, but it is still a neat thing to add to the game in general for those dedicated enough to collect all of the spatulas in the game. While it wasn't the first SpongeBob platformer, it will forever be the one people talk about the most when it comes to older SpongeBob video games, which makes complete sense, considering not only did it get a remake years later, but it even got a spiritual sequel in the form of Cosmic Shake. Of course, there's also the super dedicated speedrunning community around the game, which is really fun to watch. People beat a childhood game of mine like this so fast. All in all, Battle for Bikini Bottom is SpongeBob's most iconic video games when it comes to talking about them in a conversation. While I do prefer the original to the remake a bit, it really doesn't matter which one you play since both are still a great, fun game. that's all for now, and I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.